Good morning and welcome to our weekly conference here at the Shala that we share with our students and extended family. We have been studying and preparing for our new year, our Chinese New Year. We just celebrated the Year of the Monkey and talking about the qualities of the monkey that we want to take on this year: creativity and energy and playfulness, and also the qualities of Hanuman, the deity that is my teacher, Tim Miller's deity of choice, Ishwa Devata. And to have all of us kind of take on his beautiful qualities of strength and courage and devotion and humility. So one of the stories I was telling everyone is how Hanuman was a little mischievous when he was younger. And because of that, the gods took his powers away. And his father begged them to give him back his powers. And they did under one condition, and that condition was that he would not remember how great and powerful and all his superpowers, which made Hanuman also very humble. But I said, when I tell this story, it reminds me of one of the qualities that I would like to have as a teacher for all of you, and that is to always have this place be your school, the place where you are challenged, where you challenge yourself, where you continue to grow. And also for me, as each of your teachers, for me to be one person in your life of hopefully many that constantly remind you of your greatness and that you challenge that and continue to become greater. So in that, my focus for this year to help all of you become even greater is to help you all breathe better. So as a yoga teacher, as an Ashtanga teacher, I'm a breath trainer. You're a surf coach, I'm a breath coach. You're a breath coach too. But the idea in Ashtanga is that everything we do here is based on breath. And for us, we say ayama. Do you know what ayama means? To stretch, right? So we equally have an inhale that is just as long as the exhale and just as strong as the exhale. But oftentimes as a teacher, what I notice when I'm walking around class is that you guys are great exhalers, but you're not so good at inhaling, right? So I hear this, and then silence, right? So it should sound the same. It should sound like, but oftentimes when we're practicing, like other things that we do in athletics, we have trained ourselves to exhale. Most athletes train to exhale when they work out, right? We get good at that. So it's hard for us to switch that and become better at inhaling. But also, you know, as a psychologist, I would say that we also do that in life more. In life, we're always doing this. Oh, it's all this exhaling, right? But we want to be better inhalers. Why do we want to be better at inhaling? What does that do for us? It oxygenates us, it opens us up, it expands us, right? So I'm going to read to you from a website that we'll give credit to on our website on the benefits of oxygen. Creates energy, it helps you digest your food, eliminates toxins from your body, fuels the body's muscle, metabolizes fat and carbohydrates, increases clarity, transports gases across cell membranes, strengthens our immune system, manufactures hormones and proteins, removes viruses and parasites and harmful bacteria, keeps the heart pumping healthy, incites the lung to breathe, and most importantly, allows the nervous system and all the other body tissue to function normally. The list goes on. It removes free radicals, reduces tissue swelling. It helps us bring our body to more of an alkaline state. It helps reduce inflammation, increases neurological energy and metabolism in the brain, can create and sustain cognitive improvement, wakes up sleeping brain cells that are metabolizing enough to stay alive but are not actually firing, enhances the body's ability to fight bacteria and viral infections, and the list goes on. So we know that oxygenation is absolutely crucial for our physical health. But it also mentions on here a little bit about our mental health. So we understand as well that the better we get at inhaling in life, the more we're going to be able to embrace, as we used to study Alice in Wonderland a little bit, our muchiness, our bigness. And remember our TED Talk with Amy Cutting, who was a social psychologist. She did the TED Talk on the Wonder Woman stance, remember that one? And it was all about like owning it in your body, like being big and confident, and that like when you fake it, you make it. Remember that whole thing we did with her? Well, if I could add anything to that TED Talk, I would say that that TED Talk was about inhaling in life. That we add that to our bigness, is that big inhale that helps us really stand into who we are and expand who we are and step into our muchiness as our qualities. So with our breathing, we're going to talk a little bit about some ways that we can increase our inhale within our Ashtanga practice and try to stretch it out a little bit more simply by focusing on it and really being more mindful in our practice. And as we get better at that, then also I'm going to give you guys some homework to start doing a little bit more inhaling in your lives as well. But I am going to read to you an inspirational story that I absolutely love. I read in conference on Sunday about kind of breathing into life and becoming our bigger version of ourselves. And this is taken from a book we're going to be studying this semester, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. This is towards the end of the book, and the story is called Walk Proudly. 20 years ago, I was at a party talking to a guy whose name I have since forgotten and maybe never knew. Sometimes I think this man came into my life for the sole purpose of telling me this story, which has delighted and inspired me ever since. The story this guy told me was about his young brother who was trying to become an artist. The guy was deeply admiring of his brother's efforts and told me an illustrated anecdote about how brave and creative and trusting his little brother was. For the purposes of the story, which I shall now recount, let's call the little brother, Little Brother. Little Brother, an aspiring painter, saved up all his money and went to France to surround himself with beauty and inspiration. He lived on the cheap, painted every day, visited museums, traveled to picturesque locations, bravely spoke to everyone he met, and showed his work to anyone that would look at it. One afternoon, Little Brother struck up a conversation in a cafe with a group of charming young people who turned out to be some species of fancy aristocrats. The charming young aristocrats took a liking to Little Brother and invited him to a party that weekend in France. They promised Little Brother that this was going to be the most fabulous party of the year. It would be attended by the rich, by the famous, by several crowned heads of Europe. Best of all, it was to be a masquerade ball where nobody skimped on costumes. It was not to be missed. Dress up, they said, and join us. Excited, Little Brother worked all week on his costume that he was certain would be a showstopper. He scoured Paris for material and held back neither on details nor audacity of his creation. Then he rented a car and drove to the castle 3 hours from Paris. He changed into his costume in the car and ascended the castle steps. He gave his name to the butler, who found him on the guest list and politely welcomed the Little Brother into the ball, head held high. Upon which he immediately realized his mistake. This was indeed a costume party. His new friends had not misled him there, but he had missed one detail in the translation. This was a themed costume party. The theme was medieval court, and the Little Brother was dressed as a lobster. All around him, the wealthiest and most beautiful people of Europe were attired in gilded finery and elaborate period gowns draped with heirloom jewelry, sparkling with elegance as they waltzed to a fine orchestra. Little Brother, on the other hand, was wearing a red leotard, red tights, red ballet slippers, and giant red foam claws. Also, his face was painted red. This was the part of the story where I must tell you that Little Brother was over 6 feet tall and quite skinny. But with this long waving antenna on his head, he appeared even taller. He was also, of course, the only American in the room. He stood at the top of the steps for one long, ghastly moment. He almost ran away in shame. Running away in shame seemed like the most dignified response in the situation, but he didn't run. Somehow, he found his resolve. He'd come this far, after all. He'd worked tremendously hard to make this costume, and he was proud of it. He took a deep breath and walked onto the dance floor. He reported later that it was only his experience as an aspiring artist that gave him the courage and the license to be so vulnerable and absurd. Something in life had already taught him to just put it out there, whatever it is. That costume was what he had, after all, so that's what he was bringing to the party. It was the best he had. It was all he had. So he decided to trust himself, to trust his costume, and to trust his circumstances. As he moved into the crowded aristocrats, a silence fell. The dancing stopped, the orchestra stuttered and stopped. The other guests gathered around the little brother. Finally, someone asked him what on earth he was. The little brother bowed deeply and announced, "I am the court lobster." Laughter, not ridicule, just joy. They loved him. They loved his sweetness, his weirdness, his giant red claws, his skinny ass, and his bright spandex tights. He was the trickster among them, and so he made the party. Little brother ended up dancing that night with the Queen of Belgium. This is how you must do it, people. I have never created anything in my life that did not make me feel, at some point or another, like I was the guy who just walked into a fancy ballroom wearing a homemade lobster costume. But you must stubbornly walk into that room regardless. You must hold your head high. You made it. You get to put it out there. Never apologize for it. Never explain it away. Never be ashamed of it. You did your best with what you knew, and you worked with what you had at the time that you were given. You were invited, and you showed up. And you simply cannot do more than that. They might throw you out, but then again, they might not. They probably won't throw you out, actually. The ballroom is often more welcoming and supportive than you could ever imagine. Somebody might even think you're brilliant and marvelous. You might even wind up dancing with royalty. Or you might just end up having to dance alone in the corner of the castle with your big foam claws waving in the air. That's fine too. Sometimes I like that. What you absolutely must not do is turn around and walk out. Otherwise, you will miss the party. And that would be a pity because, please believe me, we did not come all this great distance and make all this great effort only to miss the party at the last minute. So, my dear students, this week is about breathing more deeply into your yoga practice and getting out there in your lives and breathing more deeply in your lives. So your homework this week is this. I would like you guys to wake up every morning. Most of you wake up with an alarm clock? Some? If you wake up with an alarm clock, I'm going to suggest that you put a bean on the top of it. So when you go to hit it, if you press snooze or whatever, the bean's going to fall off and remind you of this. I want you to wake up every morning and take 10 huge, biggest ever breaths. Every morning. I have started doing this, and let me tell you, it's a powerful way to start your day. And it reminds us that we want to take big breaths all throughout our day, not just in our yoga practice, but all throughout our day, when we're about to answer the phone, when we're about to go in a meeting, when we're driving in our cars. So here's your quote for this week. It begins with Mary Oliver. Listen, are you breathing just a little and calling it a life? And this is from our story of the lobster. What you absolutely must not do is turn around and walk out. Otherwise, you will miss the party. And that would be a pity because, please believe me, we do not want to come all this great distance and make all this great effort only to miss the party at the last minute. My dear students, breathe big and long, step into your expansiveness, and show up for the party. And make sure you tell me your stories. Namaste.